Good morning. The title to this video is Cut Off, Economically Cut Off, and the Mark of the Beast. So to understand the relationship of being cut off, which is an expression used quite a bit in the Old Testament, you have to really
turn right,
see what they're trying to get at with respect to control. You know, the ultimate control is
stay in the middle
control.
lane.
And the Mark of the Beast alludes to that. The Mark of the Beast says no man can buy and sell without...
In a quarter mile, turn right onto North.
Okay, so here we go. All right. So being cut off is an expression from the Old Testament, and it's a command by Yah. I did a word study on it, basically expressing how, you know, if the Israelites, you know, they're in the Exodus, and there's individuals who are not obeying the law, and they were stiff-necked, they would get cut off. They would get removed from the tribe because they're trying to operate under their own rules. And so that's very easy to do a word study on that and see the instances when that is used. Now, the adversary will always make a counterfeit of whatever Yah's doing. So that means if Yah has a righteous society and then people are doing evil, Yah tells us to cut those people off and stay separate from those people. To put them into exile, basically, if they're unrepentant sinners, right? So that means you have the core, you know, it's Exodus, so you have a righteous society, cut off the evil people that continue to do sin. Similarly, because Babylon always makes a counterfeit, if you have a evil society which is based upon rebellion from Yah, the adversary is similarly able to cut off the righteous. So it's, you know, it's all about control, you know. So if you're the adversary and you want to set up a society based upon usury, perpetual debt, you know, basically the society that we have today, then one is able to exile the truth speakers. Okay, so now I want to tie this in to the time under, you know, during the time of Elijah. So if you read in 1 Kings 18, in the very beginning of it, it's kicking off Elijah's witness. And so Elijah, he is in a time where the Israelites are in rebellion. All right, so the king at the time is in rebellion, and his wife is Jezebel, the very definition of rebellion based upon false morality and man's law. It all comes down to, are we going to be living under Yah's law, or are we going to define good and evil under our own terms? Are we going to do what's right in our own eyes? All right, so all of this is going to tie into the Mark of the Beast, but unless you know and understand that the Mark of the Beast isn't something new, the Mark of the Beast is something thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. And most people don't investigate this enough because they don't know the Old Testament, and they're not willing to confront the evil that we live under today and to see how deeply rooted it is. It's way bigger than the Constitution. The Constitution is man defining good and evil, we the people defining good and evil, we the people making law and doing what's right in our own eyes. So during the time of Elijah, there were 100 prophets, and the prophets are willing to challenge the false authority. Well, the establishment, the evil establishment of Jezebel, they don't like that. So what do? they go in to, and they use parts of the truth. So they'll show the people, oh, you know, these prophets are doing evil. They're challenging the authority or whatever. So we're going to cut them off. Well, that's exactly what happened to these 100 prophets, and they were hid in caves. So you can look this up to confirm what I'm saying is true, and you can see this expression of being cut off multiple times throughout Exodus because it's part of the law. However, it gets corrupted. You know, you can have a righteous society and you cut off the evil people, or you can have an unrighteous society and you cut off the righteous. So at the time of Jezebel, they were cutting off the righteous, and that's what they do today. And the mark of the beast, which is you know, monopoly over money and the monopoly over force and control in a society, so that you're able to exile truth speakers. And that's what's going on right now today with respect to censorship and deplatforming and demonetization of videos and deplatforming different speakers. And I'm not saying all these people that are being deplatformed are righteous truth tellers, but they tell more truth about the existing system than Babylon wants to reveal. And what typically Babylon will do is they'll take down you know, more prominent people, and so in order to give a false persecution so that they get raised up. You know what I mean? The same way that if you kill, you know, certain musicians or kill certain political leaders, you make them bigger than they were if they're alive, like a Martin Luther King or somebody like that. So, all right. So we're in the Old Testament. We're with I think it was King Ahab. I forget the name, to be honest with you, and Jezebel, and they exiled, or they cut off, these 100 prophets because they were speaking truth. They were biblical prophets. They were condemning what Jezebel and that whole wicked system was doing. So in order to eliminate those dissenting voices, they cut them off and they stuck them in, they hid in caves, and then their supporters had to give them bread and water because they couldn't make a living. And that's what the dominant society, the dominant evil society, is able to do. They're able to control society and truth and various people, as you know, this shouldn't be news to anybody. With the power of money, you can finance untruth, and you can starve truth. And that's what the control of money monopoly is able to do. He who has the gold makes the rules. And that's against Yah's law. Basically, those who have a money monopoly are able to create their own value system, to create their own laws. Okay, so I want to give a couple examples moving forward of other instances in the Bible where the mark of the beast was used as a tool to cut off people. All right, so moving forward, John the Baptist, he was clothed in, you know, obviously he was a prophet. He spoke truth to power. Well, he had to live outside of society, and he wore animal skins. He was living wild. He was eating locust and honey. He was living off grid. All right, because he was fighting the system. And if, by the way, if you tried to do this today, if you wanted to reject the mark of the beast, which is the 666 on the one world currency that we use right now, the Federal Reserve note, you know, obviously people will say, oh, you know, it's something in the future. No. This is a very, very old thing. This is the Star of Remphan. All right, the star of Remphan. See the 666? This is the $1. This is the dollar. This is the almighty dollar, the one world currency. There's a star, a 666 right there. That's the star of Remphan. All right, that's the symbol of those who killed the prophets. Killed the prophets, right? Killed the Israelite Messiah. This is their symbol. Alternatively, the seven-branched menorah, that's the symbol of the Israelites. So we have to see how the adversary always is making a counterfeit. The Star of David is not scriptural in terms of, that's not the symbol of David. David didn't, the symbol of David was the seven-branched menorah. Okay. 7 symbolizes the Sabbaths and debt forgiveness. The moneylenders hate debt forgiveness. They hate debt forgiveness. The moneylenders hate the 7 times 7, which gets you to the Jubilee, which is the good news that we all have a free land inheritance. Yah owns the land. He wants to give the land to his people as a free land inheritance so that they can have a sabbatical. You get a whole year off, right? These are things that the slave masters do not want for the people to have, but our righteous King and Creator does want us to have. You know, you'll never hear this stuff explained in any church, because why? Because if they started doing it, the number one, the parishioners, the people that attend the church, they would stop going because they didn't want to be guilted out for serving this satanic system, just as I'm doing right now, right? I'm not claiming any sort of holier than thou status. I'm going to prostitute my mind, body, and soul on behalf of the mark of the beast right now. And some people will say, oh, you know, that's something that's on your right hand, it's on your forehead. No, that's not true. It means that when it gives that phraseology of the right hand and in your forehead, that's referring to it's on the top of your mind, and it dominates your thoughts and activities, right? Your thoughts, it's like, oh man, I've got 2 children, I've got to make sure I'm paying and keeping them fed and clothed and paying for fuel and property taxes and keeping up with all this stuff. Otherwise, they take your house away, you lose your family, you lose your wife, you lose everything, right? Because you gotta, I mean, it's a biblical commandment, you gotta take care of your family, obviously. And that's all good. The problem is that through this evil monetary system, through this evil control over economics, we're forced to engage in activities, we're compelled to engage in activities which are destructive, and actually you have a third-party interloper who, by virtue of controlling the money, I'm going to go build a pool for somebody, and that's a good thing, you know what I mean? That's okay, that's not the problem, and they're going to pay me, and that's not this transaction between me and the customer. The problem is there's a third-party usurper, a usurer who is a third-party interloper, and by virtue of us having to do this economic exchange, this trade of value between me and this pool customer, these third-party interlopers are able to be made unbelievably wealthy and powerful. And it's the same with gold and silver and Bitcoin, because all of those are monopoly currencies that are the mining operations of which are controlled by the elite. Poor people do not have gold and silver mines. Poor people don't have Bitcoin mines. For that matter, they don't have a lot of greenbacks or Federal Reserve notes. That's the point, is because the labor, our commercial energy is being parasitically extracted by these third-party interlopers, where effectively they can monopolize our energies, and the money all gets siphoned up through usury, and there's a perpetual transfer of wealth from poor to rich through usury. and through various taxes and all kinds of other schemes by the financial elite. So the point is the solution to all of this is biblical economics, through the cycles of sevens and the Sabbaths and self-issued money and tithing, only 10%, and we do that with our labor and our products. We don't even need money under a biblical system. And it totally eliminates these third-party usurers. So there's no violence, no hate, really not a bunch of blame. It's our own fault, right? Yah says this himself, like if you rebel, then I'm gonna put you into captivity. And so he's explaining how that's done. It says very plainly in Deuteronomy 28:43 that the money lenders will be the head and we will be the tail. And the scheme through which they do that is they cut us off, and they do it through money monopoly. Getting back to biblical examples of being cut off, we have John the Baptist, which I just alluded to. If you tried to live today without using the mark of the beast and its economic system, you would have to go live homeless or off-grid like John the Baptist. You'd be doing the same sort of things. Maybe wearing animal skins and eating locust and honey because you didn't have money, the dominant money monopoly system money, and you'd be living off-grid. Okay, so there's a second example. Here's a third example. Messiah, Jesus, Yah who saves, Joshua, he came upon a man who was blind. He was an adult, but he was blind since birth. And then Yahushua, Jesus, he took some dirt and spittle, and he made a compound, and he anointed his eyes so that he could see. He did a miracle, right? So in the process of doing a miracle, he then he did this in front of the boy's parents, who should have been completely appreciative. However, when the scribes and the Pharisees later asked how this miracle was achieved, they refused to witness. And the reason why they refused to witness, I should preface that the healed man, he did witness. However, the parents refused to witness. And the reason why they refused to witness is that the order had already been given out that anybody that witnessed that Jesus was doing these miracles, or they witnessed that he was the anointed Christ, that he was the true Messiah King, that they would be cut off from the synagogue. Cut off, right? So they had obviously these elite that Jesus was battling nonstop during his ministry, particularly in Jerusalem, when he whipped the money lenders, who are the real head of the snake. They had set up a wicked society based upon money monopoly, he who has the gold makes the rules kind of stuff, right? So they were obeying some of the commandments. They still, observe the feasts just like they do today in Jerusalem. However, they don't go all of the way. They don't condemn usury. They don't observe debt forgiveness every 7 years. They have a secular nation where they vote for leaders, and under the Bible, there's no voting. So there's a few examples there of how the dominant society, through money monopoly, from the Old Testament through into the New Testament, they are giving historic witnesses of the mark of the beast. Meaning the ability of the elite to cut off those dissenting voices who are speaking truth to power. I see a comment here. I can almost read it. Oh, it says hello. Hey, Bishop Kelvin. Hello. It's hard for me to read while I'm driving, but I appreciate the comments. And this is a paramount issue that we should be discussing today, because it's the reason why the churches, this concept of the mark of the beast, is why the churches are corrupt. It's why the synagogues are corrupt. It's why the Islam is corrupt. Because the ability to monopolize money is also the ability to finance evil with unlimited funds and to completely cut off financing to dissenting voices. That's why I got to build pools rather than be able to talk about this full-time all the time, which is what I really want to do, what I was born to do. I was born to do this all of the time, willing to die on behalf of Yah and to expand the borders of His kingdom in the face of these evil controllers, these moneylenders who finance both sides of wars, who initiate wars with false flags and deceptions and herd the sheep and destroy love between men and women and families, and destroy families and destroy tribes and destroy nations, and promote pornography and abortion and all of this. Well, that's why they have nearly unlimited power to do what they're doing, is because Yah is turning us over to our lusts. Yah's basically saying, like, if you think that you own it, if you think that you're, obviously we're tenants, we're not the owners, we're not the creators. If we are like the wicked tenants who forgot who the real owner is, then He's gonna just let us wallow in our in evil, to wallow in our sin, to wallow in our filth like a pig, like the prodigal son who's refusing to return to his father's ways. So that's what's going on in the world. Everything is a symptom of our rebellion, of our being like Adam and Eve and the serpent, and voting and thinking that we are gods and we can create law. Everything is a symptom of that lie, of that vanity, of that self-deception. And that's why we're all, it's Wednesday and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of cars on the road. All of us driving off, leaving our families, leaving our tribes, leaving our communities to drive all over the place, chasing down that dollar. And for anybody that loves truth and wants to live in truth and spirit, this is the walk. This is the basic understanding that you have to have of the world. Is they control the whole thing through money monopoly, and the only means by which that we get out of this is we have to get on our knees and be like little children, say, like, everything that I learned is a lie. And I've been programmed, sadly, by my parents. My parents have turned me over to these government schools to indoctrinate me more deeply into lies and lies and lies and deception and polytheism and the phony U.S. Constitution and more deception, so that we have no idea how to get out of this captivity. Very little discernment to figure out who we should even be listening. And the greatest tragedy is that having no idea of what to do to mount any sort of real challenge to this false authority which is ruling earth today. So the role of the prophets is to return the hearts of the fathers. Like, Even if you're a coward, even if you're afraid to do anything, even if you don't know what to do, it is incumbent upon us, because we have children, because we have other people that we love, and they're going to go through this great suffering of going out to do all kinds of nonsense on behalf of these moneylenders, when we could be staying at home with our families, with no one to make us afraid, living under our own vine and our own fig, in tribal societies. We could be living in the kingdom on earth within less than a year. We can overcome this captivity, because that's the witness of the history of the Exodus. People that only knew the ways of Pharaoh and that had forgotten their tribal identity. I'm talking about the Exodus Israelites, right? They totally had forgotten what their tribal identity was. They were brainwashed into thinking that they were Egyptians, just like we're brainwashed into thinking that we're Americans, when we're not. The American Indians were Americans. The Central American Indians, indigenous, are Americans. The South American Indians are indigenous, right? But not the Spanish who came in, the conquistadors. They're Spanish, they're European, just like I'm European, right? So the tribal identity is to take us all the way back to a time when we weren't subjected to the mark of the beast, where we could wake up in a tribal society and we would kick it, right? I'm not saying that we wouldn't have to work and build houses and go out and farm, but we weren't all working for this international bank cabal. We weren't all subjected to perpetual usury and the service of being enslaved by Pharaoh and man's law. And the 666 refers to man's law. So this money thing, it dominates our thoughts, it dominates our activities, it dominates everything that we do. And then sadly, a great portion of society, we dedicate our thoughts and activities toward getting money, and then we're still never at peace. Even when we do have it, we're still not at peace. Because this, just like Messiah says, you've turned my Father's house into a den of thieves. So there's thieves everywhere. You have the common thieves, but the real threat, the one that he went after, was the establishment thieves. The thieves in the churches, the thieves in the temple, the thieves in the government, the thieves in the churches, stealing in the name of Yah. They're taking tithes and offering and then turning it over to the false authority, saying that we the people make the law, saying that the lie that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. These are all lies this is the leaven of the scribes and the Pharisees, right? So we have to really get tight, really bear down, and acknowledge the truth of what's going on right now. As we have been deceived since birth. Our parents, we've inherited lies of our parents, inherited lies of our dominant culture, of this fake political system, these fake elections, this illusion of choice between Democrats and Republicans and libertarians, when they're all satanic. All of them are either communism or fascism, and both of those are just fronts for the usurers. Capitalism is just usury. That's all it is. Capitalism, moneyism, mammonism, right? Biblical economics is neither communism, capitalism, fascism, we the peopleism, or humanism. None of those things. Biblical economics is completely independent of all of those things. So until we're willing to really get together and focus on these things, we will have no traction. We will have no hope. We will have no plan. We will have no future. However, if we it's Yah says, in order to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must make your mind again like a child, right? Making your mind again like a child is when we weren't filled up with all of this idolatry of the flag and the anthem and the Constitution and voting and we the people and man creates law and we have these legislators, these lawmakers, thousands and thousands and thousands of lawmakers in Babylon. Is that the truth? Or is the truth that only Yah creates law? Right? The biblical witness is that only Yah creates law. So we have to acknowledge that Babylon is a theocracy. We live under a theocracy right now. We live in a theocracy right now called Babylon. And it basically, in that theocracy, it says, you can worship whoever you want. However, you must obey Caesar. You must obey, and you must tithe, and you must render to Pharaoh. And you must serve and sacrifice on behalf of this satanic government. And as we do, and as we all work our hamster work, as we all labor in this hamster wheel rat race thing, the bank buildings just get taller and taller. The presidential libraries get bigger and bigger. And the deceptions get taller and taller. And the lies get more and more profane. And the lies get more and more bold. Where, under Babylon's morality, there's thousands of genders. Under Babylon's morality, anything goes. And it gets more and more absurd. 1 and 1, 1 plus 1 equals 3 under Babylon's absurdities. And if you reject that, you get deplatformed, you get cut off, you get demonetized. And sadly, even those people who are being demonetized won't acknowledge the biblical truth, and that the mark of the present reality of the mark of the beast, which is thousands of years old, they won't even give a discussion of it. Because guys like Alex Jones are constitutionalists, and they believe that the Constitution is the greatest thing ever created. And that's such a satanic lie. That's as if to say no one is ever free until the Constitution came along. That's as if to say that the Exodus Israelites were never made free. And that Yah's biblical government, judges of tens, 50s, hundreds, and thousands, has a defect. And it was only perfected when they decided that they're going to have 435 representatives and senators and all that Constitution nonsense, right? That's what I mean, is Alex Jones is a constitutionalist, and because he's loyal opposition, right? They're playing a very advanced game. They're cutting off dissenting voices, but in the meantime, Alex Jones is still loyal opposition, because he won't, if he was really righteous, at least he would use his audience and offer this opinion. People could reject it if they want to, but at least they would give some time to it At least that he would start talking about usury in debt. At least he would start talking about debt forgiveness every 7 years at the Feast of Tents. At least he would explain how Rothschild Israel, as an imposter, that the 666 Star of David is a counterfeit, that Rothschild Israel is secular, and that they vote, and how voting is satanic. There's no voting in the Bible. There's no need for majorities in the Bible. Why does Rothschild Israel have an Egyptian pyramid and an Egyptian obelisk? If they claim, if you represent the Israelites, that's an awfully strange thing, is to put an Egyptian pyramid on your Supreme Court building. Alex Jones never talks about any of this kind of stuff. So they're doing a very clever COINTEL operation in order to make false messiahs. That's what they're doing, is they make false messiahs. Say, look, he's being killed and persecuted and cut off, therefore he's a true truth teller, which he is not. Although he does talk about quite a bit, a lot, very much so. He talks about a lot of sincere, truthful topics, like 9/11 being an inside job. But then sadly he turns around and he blames it on the Muslims instead of the synagogue of Satan, right? So there are righteous and noble Jews like Nehemiah and Jesus himself, and what's his name? Apostle Paul. So along with the 3,000 Jews who were converted into being believers at Pentecost. So the point is that this isn't to cast blame on all Jews whatsoever. It's to say that Judaism, just like Christianity, just like Islam, has been financed by the moneylenders, and the ones that we see on TV, the dominant Judaism, the dominant Christianity, and the dominant Islam, they're financed by the moneylenders as false solutions. Otherwise, they would be talking about these very same things and responding to it not with violence, but responding to it with, we got to implement biblical economics so that we can finance a society and then cut off evil, instead of having the dominant society cut off truth. So that's the word for today. I hope I hope Yah has helped to help me to articulate it precisely, without hate, without. The solution is biblical economics, and we don't need to vote to accomplish that. We don't need to kill anybody to accomplish that. We don't need to be engaged in simply the blame game, but we should blame ourselves. We're the ones, we've been given the Bible, we've been given in the instruction, we've been given the Torah, we have instructions of what to do and when to do it and how to implement it. All we need to do now is to implement it. So that's the Israelite state of the union. That's where we're at right now. We have everything we need to do to accomplish the kingdom of heaven on earth, and that's the Lord's Prayer, including debt forgiveness. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the power and the glory and the kingdom on earth forever and ever. Thanks for listening.